Hi, I'm Ethan. I love muzzleloading. Today we're taking a look at this Flintlock folding stock muzzleloader. Don't tell the ATF about this one. Blunderbusses like this one with a folding stock were reportedly nicknamed wolf killers in Italy. The breech section of the barrel is engraved with scrollwork and wavy line patterns and is marked LAZARO or LAZARINO on the top and LB on the left. We're just going to cut to the chase here and talk about the folding stock first, because I've never seen much of anything like this on a flintlock or on an antique muzzleloader really at all. This is the kind of thing that we see a lot in modern arms, but not necessarily in an antique arm from the 18th century. Up here you'll see at the top we have a push button release, very similar to those that we'd see in a patch box. Note that there is no patch box on this piece. We simply press this button and a catch releases. I'll show you some close-up shots here. Really simple mechanism here. That releases the buttstock here, and this is allowed to hang like so. So you can see here, it would hang like this. If we have these two holes here in our side plate, that could be for a saddle ring or a hook of some kind, just folds down to be a little bit of a more compact muzzleloader. Obviously it gains some thickness here because we are running into our trigger guard when we're folded down like this, but it takes a little bit of the length off at least, and you almost have a shockwave-esque flintlock here with that stock folded down, which is just a little bit kooky, a little bit wild. You know, it's really simple. This flips up, catches there. I think over time, this is a little bit looser than it would have been straight from the shop or straight from the gunsmith, but just a neat little piece of history nonetheless. We have a simple 3-lug hinge here, like you'd see just on just about any hinge, really. The 2 exterior lugs of the hinge belong to the main part of the muzzleloader here, with the single center lug being connected to the rear of the buttstock. We have a bit more structure on the inside here. It's pretty much hidden until you open it up like this. So here you can see our catch and our push to release it here. Really simple spring mechanism there, like I said. This has a rather large bolt head though, going into the wrist of the stock. And we have a pretty beefy metal face here, all connected to this hinge. So while on the exterior here, it can give you the impression that this is attached you know, to the trigger guard. This, on further inspection here, isn't at all attached to those trigger guard tangs. It's attached exclusively to the interior here, where we have these massive bolt heads going into the wood. Again, the simple catch here on the rear of the buttstock is just kind of some hogged out wood. We can see in here that there is no finish on the interior of the stock here, where we have that catch connecting to the metal. There's no oil or stain or anything in there. And we flip that up and you have your fully stocked blunderbuss ready to go. I mean, you can just get right on it here, you know, get your little swing action in here as you're looking for wolves, and you're ready to go. Really similar stock structure to some of the German Jaegers that we see. This isn't necessarily a Jaeger though. Apart from the folding stock back here at the rear, you can see here this elliptical muzzle is a little bit different than we've seen in a lot of pieces. It's just your traditional smooth bore. Perhaps the elliptical shape here acted as a rudimentary choke on the blunderbuss to guide its shot or its projectiles downrange towards target. I could see that perhaps, you know, fanning your shot out rather than up and down. And I guess if you're going after a wolf, you want that spread out kind of long and low when you're taking your shot. Let's talk a little bit about the details on this piece. We have some beautiful engraving along the lock plate and the cock itself. We have some simple nicks taken out of, I believe intentionally, out of our frizzen spring here. And the frizzen itself features some simple scrolls on that front face. We have a rather large lock here. My tape measure out here. And it measures about 5.5 inches from the front to the tail there. You know, as we're sitting here, about 3 inches to the top of the cock as it rests. Even the lock bolt going through the cock here is engraved. We see on this piece a lot of eagle or bird motifs of some kind, perhaps a falcon, going along with the hunting purpose of this piece. A predatory bird would make sense. I'd have to study a little bit more to say for certain, but I'll include some up-close shots of these birds for you to check out at home. We have that kind of early curved lock plate as that goes around there. Our trigger guard here, also large, kind of going along with the lock itself. We have some floral patterns up here. It's a really neat trigger guard because we have a beveled face going around the trigger guard with engraving as we come up here to one of these other bird motifs here on the crest of our trigger guard, surrounded by the same floral or leaf engraving patterns. Comes back around rather sharply around our single trigger. The trigger has a really dainty scroll at the bottom, very ornate. The rest of the piece is pretty beefy, so it's nice to see that little curl in there on the trigger. It makes it nice. On the butt plate here, we have, I think, the largest of these bird symbols here, surrounded or flanked really by more engraving on this iron butt plate. We have a single exterior screw here at the base of the butt plate, and we have another one back here at the top of our butt plate. Nice engraving again on the butt plate as we come up here across our cheek well. Simple scroll engraving there, and just kind of these general nicks and dings from use contrasted in color. There's a little bit of a curl. You can see the lines a little bit in the stock, but overall it's nothing crazy as far as curl goes. And I think that's probably intentional. When we look at this piece ultimately becoming a folding stock, you want a pretty strong grain, I would say stronger than usual in the wrist, because that is a weak point on many of these pieces. But when you're cutting that in half and almost intentionally breaking that grain structure, you want what you're tapping into with your bolt and your hinge assembly to be tough and pretty good grain structure. We don't really have a lot, there's no cheek rest. There's no ornate carving back here. As we come up to our wrist or our thumb piece, we have that same eagle represented again. This time, this plate is tacked on with two what looks like flathead screws, which is interesting to see. You'll see a lot of times there'll just be two nails or tacks holding that in, but we do have the extra cost of a couple screws coming in here. The tang of the piece features some more relief carving here and some simple waved line engraving as we come up to the breech end of the barrel, where we have much deeper engraving, relief engraving, I'd say, with a stippled background to separate some traditional scrolls from the deeper face of the barrel. Across the top here, we have an engraved maker's mark or owner's mark. I'll give you an up-close detail of that if you'd like to research more on your own. And we have some simple waved and dot borders going across the flat faces of the barrel. Before we get back into similar engraving that we see at the breech end, and then we have a wedding band before the barrel turns into its smooth round form coming up to the muzzle. At the muzzle, we see a simple wedding band around the muzzle, around this elliptical face here. Flipping over here to our side plate, we have our bird motif again, and we have these two holes in the side plate that don't coincide with the traditional two bolts that we see in this side plate. The folks here at Rock Island think that this is from attachment point for either a hook or some kind of saddle ring to carry this in the field. Apart from the mysterious holes and the bird motif, we have really similar scroll work and leaf motifs here on the side plate that we see in tons and tons of muzzleloaders and art and furniture from this period. This is just a translation of those motifs and those designs into engraving, and you see them really for another 100 years or more in firearms and muzzleloaders after this point. It's just really traditional, really common artwork here. The forestock itself has a lot more carving than we see back here in the buttstock. So we have some scroll work coming off of our side plate face as we go up into the molding around our barrel channel and our ramrod channel. This decoration is really balanced when we look at the underside of the stock as the carving lines come off of the trigger guard and run up to our entry pipe here, where we see, again, another balance of design work in the hardware to the wood mating surfaces. Our entry pipe and our ramrod pipe, really there's just two here. We have the main ramrod pipe out front and our entry pipe back here, have some light, simple engraving, and it's something that I see a lot of on these original pieces where the quality of the engraving on the ramrod pipes doesn't necessarily match the rest of the hardware. It makes me wonder if these were done maybe by an apprentice or somebody learning. The design motifs are different, they're not the same, and the quality of the cuts is not the same. We can look here and see lines that stop and start over each other. And the motif here is almost the kind of two pointed ends around a rough circle in the center. To the modern eye, it looks like two pencil ends on either side with kind of a circle in the middle. The ramrod pipe and the entry pipe have a wedding band at the front and the rear, and but the engraving on the ramrod pipe and the entry pipe are the same. So that different pattern that we're seeing here compared to the rest of the piece is the same on both of these pipes. On this underside of our ramrod channel, we have again some more of that nice carving. We have kind of a motif coming off of our lock plate here into a scroll and up into a flat with some nicks here, and then kind of some floral carving, chip carving really, around our ramrod pipe pins that are retaining those ramrod pipes. We have a wood ramrod. With this, we have a real simple plain wood end here on the interior end, and on the opposite end here we have a beautiful turned, I believe turned, iron end. You know, there's no threading or anything here for a jag or anything, but this is just a neat detail that doesn't really match the rest except when we think about the different faces here on our hardware. So it's not out of place, but it is kind of a focal point when we look at the front end of the piece. I mentioned earlier that we don't have a fore-end cap of any kind. I do want to note though that the molding line on the barrel channel and the ramrod channel goes all the way out to the end and wraps gently around the fore end here. So it doesn't terminate abruptly, but it does kind of dissipate as we go around the stock. Overall, this is just a really neat piece. The folding stock really takes the cake for me as far as something neat, but the rest of the piece itself is a nice example you know, of a blunderbuss. Like I said, it's not in pristine condition, but it is still neat nonetheless. And I mean, look at that. Doesn't that just look cool? Just snap that up and you're ready to go. I hope you've enjoyed taking a look at this piece here. If you'd like to see more or learn more about it or start your own research on the Italian wolf killer blunderbusses, I encourage you to visit the Rock Island auction. They have a lot of really neat pictures and documentation to go along with these original pieces. Their photographers are much better than I am, so if you'd like to see more up-close details of these, please check them out and follow their social media pages as they're continually posting information and beautiful photographs about original muzzleloaders, just like this one. I'm Ethan. I love muzzleloading. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.